constitutional amendment. Our agenda tonight is we'll do introductions and establish a quorum. Then we'll review and vote on the minutes. Then we'll go through the report. And I would suggest that we go through page by page, see if there's any final edits. Then we have a topic called other business, and there are several items that what happens after the report. And there's a whole list of things that we should talk about. We want to make time available for public commentary. And then, of course, we could adjourn. And if this is our last meeting, say farewell. So that being the agenda, hearing no objections, let's go forward with the introductions and establish a quorum. So this is Bill Kilmartin from Newburyport. Carmen?
Carmen Gentile from Sudbury.
Jeff?
Jeff Clements, Cambridge.
Bopa?
Bopa Malone, Bedford.
Costas?
Costas Panagopoulos, Wellesley.
Jay? You're on mute, Jay. Well, we know Jay's. There he is.
Right here, right here. Yep, no, sorry, I run out and get the power cord for the laptop, sorry.
Thank you. Scott?
Member to Medfield.
Dominic?
Dominick Pangallo from Cheryl.
Cheryl?
Cheryl Clyburn, Crawfor, Boston.
Okay, so we have a quorum. Additional commissioners might join us in progress. Let us turn to the next item on the agenda, which is a review and vote on the minutes. Jeff, you had sent out the minutes a few minutes ago. Do you want to tell us what's in there?
Yeah, I'm sharing my screen. Everyone can see it. And so the minutes at the last meeting are fairly simple, but they cover a lot of ground that we reviewed. The video of the whole meeting itself is on here, June 16. Sorry, there's a typo, which I'll fix right now. July 14. No, sorry, we did approve those minutes. It was right. The meeting was July 14th. We reviewed the draft of the second report at the time and made motions and approved the changes that are indicated in the bullet points and heard public comment.
Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
The second?
Second.
Discussion of the minutes. Anybody have any topics they want to discuss pertaining to the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Okay, so I think we're ready for a vote. Bill votes yes. Carmen?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Bopa?
Yes.
Costas?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Dominic?
Yes.
Cheryl?
Yay.
Okay, thank you. The minutes have been approved. Next item on the agenda is to go through the report. And what I'm going to suggest is that Jeff share his screen, and we're going to go through page by page, and we'll pause and see if anybody has any suggested changes or other comments they want to make about the second report. This was sent to everybody in advance. So if you read the version that I sent out last night called version 7, that you're looking at the same version that Jeff is showing right now by sharing his screen.
And this is in the public drive as well.
So that's the cover page. So this is the executive summary. Thank you, Costas, for putting this together. It's a one pager, and so we'll just pause and let folks digest this. Jeff, it might be easier if you just accept all changes and give us a clean version.
I will try to do that.
I mean, this essentially summarizes some of the key elements of the report that follows. So there's not much here that's, that's not subsequently found in the rest of the report.
And it neatly, summarizes in one page.
Yeah.
Everything that follows.
Well, I tried very hard to limit it to one page, so.
Good, well done. Anybody have any comments or suggestions, changes, other, reflections as it relates to this page? Okay, so hearing nothing, let's move forward. Then we get to there's an introduction section, then there's going to be a section on the amendments, a long section. There's going to be a section on the recommended strategy, a long section. There's going to be a closing and then the appendix. So this is the introduction, and there has been no changes really between this version of the introduction section and the version that you had seen in the prior meeting.
So I'm going to move over this section quickly then, if that's okay. Just if anybody
Yep.
wants me to stop, say so.
Just pause, as you get to the end, and we'll see if anybody has any second thoughts.
Okay.
Anybody have any comments or questions about the introduction section? Okay, so hearing none, let's move over to the next section, which is going to be about the amendments. We did have some discussion and some changes between the version that we had in our previous call and the version that you see in front of you. And we'll highlight those when we get to them. So if you scroll down, there's no changes so far from what you had seen previously. Scroll all the way down to the speech now case. Arizona, it's Arizona Free Enterprise. There was a extra sentence in the Arizona Free Enterprise case that the commissioners voted in the previous meeting to delete, and that has been done. Should we continue on? Okay, so we get into section 4, or I should say part 4 of this section. There was substantial narrative added to this version of the report to provide a better description of the rationale as to the wording in Amendment 1 and the wording in Amendment 2. So you can delete that comment, Jeff, that Bill Kilmartin, Matthew, please check, because he did.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do the delete comment. Yeah, there we go. So these paragraphs that you're looking at now are the recommended additions from the prior version that we had on the prior call. You can keep on scrolling, and if Jeff, and if anybody has any comments or questions, we can just pause. Hearing none, we should just continue to scroll through. Hope to recall the discussion about the words reasonable and the words in.
All right. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Pause there.
So yeah, let's pause there. Are folks good with this text as currently written?
Sure.
Okay, so hearing no objection, why don't we move on? This next section, another long section, talks about recommendations for a strategy to advance the amendment. A few small changes in the version that you see in front of you compared to the prior version, and those changes were exactly the changes that were recommended from the review of the prior version. You can delete that comment there, Jeff, because you did double check it. Okay, so let's just pause there, Jeff. Any comments or other observations about the section on the recommended strategy for advancing the amendment? Are we good with the text as currently set forth?
Good.
I'm fine with it.
Okay, hearing no objection, then we go to the closing, which is 1 page or less. Just a few typographical changes here compared to the previous version. Give folks a chance to digest this. Are folks okay with the text as currently set forth? Okay, so here are no objections. Let's go to the appendix. In the appendix, the first appendix is a listing of the members. And Nicholas Bowie has asked that we just asterisk that he just participated in report number 1. He did not participate in report number 2. Jennifer Todd likewise participated in report 1, did not participate in report 2. And Joyce, I don't recall whether Joyce has participated in report number 2. Do you think we should just put like an asterisk there?
I think it would be appropriate, especially if they requested it.
Yeah. They requested it, sure.
You know,
What's the
And
call?
the minutes reflect that they were not present during any of the
I think
meetings.
Joyce Sanchez was
the
at a
second.
meeting. Wasn't Joyce Sanchez at a meeting for the second report?
I thought at least one.
At least one, yeah.
I don't think.
Good. Good. So yeah, so you just put a little asterisk where your cursor is now and say participated in the first report.
All right, I need a word expert.
well, can you just go up to the top again, Jeff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So these are the members.
I believe it should be one asterisk.
Me too, but I'm going to try to foil Bill Gates's trick that he's played on me. There. Thank you, Cheryl. How about that?
Works for me.
That's fine.
Folks good with that?
Mhm.
Okay, and then we get the,
I think it's worth pointing out, not that we can do anything about it, but it's worth pointing out that one of the five, appointing authorities had absolutely no representation in this second report, given that one of the Secretary of State's appointees resigned without being replaced, and the two others excluded themselves from our deliberations for whatever reason. So, it's unfortunate that this is the place we're at this point, but it is not much to do about it now, but I think it is worth noting it.
Well, I think so too, and I know I, for one, and I think others were disappointed at the non-responsiveness of the Secretary's office when we sought to brief them. Is that correct? We didn't get a briefing with the Secretary?
well, I personally tried 5 times.
Yeah.
Through emails and phone calls and certified letters.
Yep.
On behalf of the commission.
Yeah.
Others, I think, might have also tried. So
I
yes,
tried.
we did reach out.
I tried as well, Bill, and we also tried repeatedly, not only to figure out what he was doing with the Harrington vacancy for months, but also even just to get a status update about whether our first report had been delivered to the appropriate entities, which is required of the Secretary by statute. Even there, we don't have full clarity on what the result of that was, despite repeated efforts. So it just seems to me that the Secretary's office or the Secretary himself may not have taken seriously enough the workings of this commission or their role in certain aspects of the process in moving it along. And it is unfortunate.
So Costas, do you want to state that in this report? And if so, whereabouts do you want to do it?
I don't think that that's necessary. I don't necessarily mean to call out the Secretary at this point, but I think we could be mindful of that, and it's certainly useful to just as a commission to keep that in mind as we move forward here, and also just as a practical matter to expect that we may continue to encounter some of this lack of responsiveness. I mean, he's still required to pass this along to members of Congress and the other entities, as far as I know, right? The law still requires it of his office to do so. And we may, just like the first report, we may not get that clarity. We may try harder to insist upon it, or at least to make sure it happens in this go around. But if there are crucial steps that need to follow the Secretary's delivery of these reports, it's going to set us back if the reports are never delivered in a timely or in an effective manner.
Well, as a practical matter, we can deliver copies of the report to all of the members of our congressional delegation. And the Secretary should. However, we can do it ourselves. Maybe we should. Yeah.
The Secretary is legally obligated under the statute. Right. We may be, I mean, I don't disagree, Carmen. I think we can do it ourselves too, but we're not the ones who the law says need to be doing this.
Understood. Yep.
Anyway, that was just a little bit of venting on my part.
I think nobody's disagreeing. I'm not hearing any disagreement. Yeah. Okay, let's just finish this off. And so the report just concludes with a link, hyperlink. You can scroll down, Jeff. Commissioners wanted to be able to have a hyperlink to the first report.
I'm sorry, Bill, just before we leave the signatory page again, just asking for It's LOS on my name, not LUS. So just a minor typo.
Oh my God, that's,
Never happened before.
I've done that so many times. All right, do we have a motion to accept the report?
I so move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I think we're ready for a vote. Bill votes yes. Carmen?
Bill, do we want to take any public comment on that?
I was going to recommend that we hold off on that and we get this report done and we get the other business done and do public comment at the end.
Okay. I vote yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Bopa?
Yes.
Costas?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Dominic?
Yes.
Cheryl?
Yay.
Okay, congratulations. We have completed our second report. Let's go to the next agenda item, which is other business. And I'm going to suggest 5 items to get the conversation started. And, for each item, ask that we have a discussion, see if we have, a point of view on how we want to proceed, and see if we have additional items in addition to the 5. So let me just tick off this list. Number 1, we need to do a letter or some type of correspondence to the Speaker and to the President of the Senate, to the Governor, endorsing and recommending that they move on House Bill 3208. This is the legislation that Carmen filed, which is the application of Massachusetts to the U.S. Congress for a constitutional convention. So some correspondence and some action is due pursuant to our recommended strategy. Item 2, we need to do some type of proactive correspondence or communication supporting legislation for a successor commission. The legislation for the successor commission was filed by Carmen, and it's now House Bill 4908. It sits in committee. So again, a second action item is to move that bill through the process. Item number 3. In our strategy, we talk about encouraging the Governor, Attorney General, President of the Senate, Speaker of the House, Secretary of State, in reaching out to their counterparts in the other states, transmitting copies of our report, and asking if these other states would be willing to engage with the Massachusetts Citizens Commission in some type of process of coordination and communication. So, getting those 5 appointing authorities motivated to communicate to their colleagues in the other states as a third action item. 4th, and this is not a small one, we should talk about a media plan, whether we want to do a press release, whether we want to do op-ed pieces, whether we want to, just what do we want to do in terms of a media plan. And item number 5, Costas had just mentioned this a few minutes ago. We need to get this report distributed. Pursuant to the law, it should be distributed through the Secretary of State. I'm not sure if we can just totally rely on the Secretary of State to do that, whether we want to talk about some double coverage on distribution. Perhaps we distribute it through other mechanisms. There's like 5, potential action items under the rubric of other business. Should we talk about them one at a time?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure, you might have misspoken. The bill number on the act to continue the Citizens Commission, I think it might be House 4988. I don't have my email in front of me, but if you just look at the email that I sent you, I just have my handwritten notes, and maybe I miswrote it.
All right, very likely I miswrote it. 4908 is what it says in the email comment.
Okay, so maybe that's what it is. It's 4908 or 4988, one or the other. I could excuse myself and go check, but probably
Well,
not.
let's take them one at a time.
Yeah.
So action item number 1 is some type of lobbying, advocacy. to move House Bill 4908 and establish the successor commission. What do folks think? Anybody have any suggestions? What should we do? The legislation's been filed. Carmen, maybe you could get this conversation started. What's your prognostication about this thing moving?
Well, I was happy to see that it actually received some attention from both the House and the Senate. Committees in both the committees that decide where bills go, they both decided to send it to the Veterans and Federal Affairs Committee. And that's where it is now. It went there on July 28th. So, you know, that's good insofar as there are so many bills that, there are bills that were in the steering committee in February that haven't moved out. They were supposed to move out in 30 days and they haven't moved out. And this bill was just filed, you know, in the last couple of weeks, and it's actually been sent out to a committee, the committee that would actually act on it if and when it acts on it. So, you know, my crystal ball is murky, but, you know, I think we do whatever we can to move it forward. And I think that the Senate president has, you know, expressed interest and was moved by our presentation when we met with her. We haven't had an opportunity to meet with the speaker yet. And I'm hopeful that that will happen. Perhaps that will happen in August. Perhaps, you know, some of us can meet with him and talk with him. And if if the speaker and the Senate president are of a mind to move it forward, I can't imagine, I'm sure the governor would, I'm confident that the governor would not veto it if they advanced it in informal sessions. I mean, we were well received with the staff, the governor's staff that we met with.
What do the commissioners think?
So I'm confirming the bill number, which is 4908.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's a great idea. I think we should definitely do all that we can. Like Carmen said, I think if it's receiving attention, we should definitely be doing all that we can to make sure that, you know, we can have a succession.
And I agree that we should be out in front of this, because I think after November, the issue of free and fair elections is going to be the #1 issue in this country. And, you know, they're the foundation of every healthy democracy. It's certainly these, you know, fair and free elections that ensure government derives from the will of the people. And my own, you know, I think we're anticipating something that, in my view, is going to be, it's going to be issues of not just campaign finance, but voter access and an independent media. And I hope it doesn't come down to it, but it may be the question of, do we have you know, an impartial judiciary? And so, you know, I would like to put the full weight of this commission behind anything that we can do to advocate for this legislation and to be out in front of the question of the fact that the issues of free and fair elections are really at the foundation of democracy. So I think if, you know, this commission should use its full voice, I think, to be in support of the legislation that Carmine has filed. And I don't know how we do that, but I think we have to be very aggressive about this.
Thank you, Scott. Other opinions? Other commissioners?
The timing is right to push now, because you're actually pushing right as you're literally putting work product on the table. You know, it's not a nebulous concept anymore. You know, there's actually something behind the initial, you know, legislation that actually established the committee. So I think if you're the commission, so if you're going to do it, now's the time to do it, because you're doing it while you're actually delivering something, as opposed to just pushing some concept. So I think I would echo those comments that were made earlier.
So my only question is really truly the timing, right? With everything that's going on, didn't they just extend this session to take care of some business, right? Like, I'm thinking, is this the time to put something different on their plate?
So the House and the Massachusetts House and Senate will only be meeting in informal session in August. And I expect the first week of September, both chambers will go back into formal session to at least take up legislation that is passed in one chamber, or even, and also legislation that's passed in both chambers, but conference committees haven't reconciled the different bills. It's questionable what other legislation might be taken up, but again, this is the type of a bill that if the Speaker and the Senate President were of a mind to have it pass in their weekly, and they still have weekly discussions with the governor and with their staffs. If those three leaders were of a mind to have this pass, then it would happen.
So I'm sorry, I was a little confused. I thought they didn't go back into formal sessions until January.
September. We passed on Friday, July 31st, late in the evening, we passed a resolution under Joint Rule 12 that governs joint meetings of the House and Senate. The House passed, and the Senate also did, to extend the formal sessions beyond July 31st. So we're still, the Speaker could call us back into session this week. The Senate President could call the Senate back into session. As a practical matter, I believe they've decided to not have formal sessions in August because we have at least 17 members that have primary elections on September 1st or so. So I think that we'll be back, and both chambers will be back in session immediately after the primary election and stay in session for all or most of September, if not, into October. We generally, when we're in session in the second half of the year, we typically break after the second week in November. And I would expect that'll happen again this year, recognizing Thanksgiving and Christmas and everything. No, we'll be in session. We'll get things done. We still have a 9 months budget to pass. We passed a budget to take us for 3 months into October, and we have nothing. We have no budget for the rest of the fiscal year. So.
Thank you. I know you would know.
Bill, I think much of what you're hoping to achieve, with the items you mentioned, is part and parcel of the overall kind of media strategy or media plan that you alluded to. I think that we can get a lot of traction by capitalizing on the public interest in releasing this second report to address some of the additional action items that we hope to move forward on, including the legislation, but also some of the other things that you mentioned, to put pressure on the appointing authorities to reach out to their counterparts in other states, et cetera. So I think we need a pretty strong launch for the second report, like we did for the first report. I'm not sure if that can be in person like it was for the first report, but at a minimum, it should be as prominent as that, and it should be it should reach out to all the key media players. But I also think at this point, something that we can do that we didn't do in the first report is to enlist the help and support of some of the other advocacy groups and key players in the good government space that can help us advance all of these goals, including passage of this legislation. So perhaps it might be worth putting together a brief note explaining that we've concluded our deliberations and linking both of our reports and soliciting their help to not only advocate for next steps, but also to spread the word and to help us think about what shape our subsequent activities take, because it's not going to be just this commission that will get these things done. We are going to need the help of lots of other groups out there that have been pushing for this type of thing maybe not exactly what we put together, but in principle, the overall goal of the project. And we need their help. And we should probably be systematic about soliciting it.
Mhm. Other thoughts?
I think we should put together a press conference, and we should choose a venue that would be a good venue for that. And maybe we can do that in the next week or 10 days. We'll see. I mean, I'm happy to work with folks on that, with Bill and Jeff Costas, whoever would like to work on that. And we'll go from there. Might be good to reach out to the Boston Globe and other media to do a story.
Yeah, well, creating a media plan and then executing the media plan is not a trivial undertaking,
Yeah.
right? And I totally agree with Costas and Carmen that we should be very proactive in terms of a media plan, a press release, reaching out to other parties. I'm wondering if somebody wants to own this action item on behalf of the commission and put together a plan and then lead the charge in executing that plan.
Well, if I had a partner, I would not undertake it myself, but if I had a partner, I would work with that partner or partners. It's always
Comment. This is Costas. I'd be glad to do it, but one thing I was going to ask is whether the gentleman, his name escapes me right now, who Jeff had reached out to us, who did a terrific job with the first report, might be willing to help us with this. Everything is pretty much set up and ready to go, and he would just have to, duplicate what we did in January. But at least most of that legwork has already been done, and with our help, he might be able to. It might just be easier to work with someone who's done this before and try to just replicate that.
Yeah, there's some complexities around that that we could talk about offline. That I do think either him or someone like that would be very good. So I wonder if there's someone in Boston that anybody's worked with before who might do a pro bono project for the people and just do a little bit of a media plan and execution on this for us out of one of the local PR operations. There's some good ones. They know all the Massachusetts contacts, but I guess, I don't have an immediate one, but I think that would be most productive. I'm not sure that it was Blair Fitzgibbon. I'm not sure he'll be available, but we can talk about it. But I think we need a plan B too.
Okay.
I do think someone like that, a professional on this, and given, as Scott said, this is just front and center of, top issue and something that I would think, maybe some of the local communications operations, which are really quite good, would be willing to do what we're doing, which is, serve the cause for the good of the Commonwealth and not ask to be compensated for it. Now, what I think we should do is, if I can't take on, especially given that I'm going to be offline for about 10 days offshore soon, and I will. But I'd be happy to brainstorm with you, Costas and Carmine, about seeing if we can get a list from some of our networks about PR shops that might be willing to talk with us about whether they're willing to do it.
Okay.
Good.
If Blair's not available, do you think he might be able to make available at least some of his media lists, or we targeted with the initial, or is that off the table as well?
Yeah, let's talk about it offline. I think they hesitate to do that because that's their bread and butter, But let's get all the options on the table. It's just yeah.
I'm willing to join a call on this topic as well. if you guys want to get together and
Good.
brainstorm about a media plan.
I mean-
The other commission is okay with a subgroup working on this? Stay
Well,
in touch with people.
So one thing we could think about, Bill, is, you know, we could give ourselves a little lead time to get all our ducks in a row and think about releasing this in September rather than in August. And then do that around an event or some kind of a launch as we did with the first one, and make sure that it happens kind of after the primary election. I think between the pandemic and the summer and the primary, people's bandwidth is pretty much full right now. So we might get lost in the shuffle. But if we give ourselves a little breathing room and release it in September and then do an event around it that we can prepare for and actually execute in a timely manner, it might get more traction.
I think that's an excellent idea. And it's what we did last time. We really did take a good month before we rolled it out, and it didn't have any problem. In fact, I thought it went quite well.
I agree.
Yeah, after Labor Day would be probably a more receptive time.
And so would we hold off on distributing the report until September? Or I was trying to understand, Costas. Are we going to send the report to the Secretary of State now and then do this press release media plan in September? Or are we going to hold everything till September?
Well, we could, you know, we could do either, right? But one thing we could do, I think last time we did send it to the 5 required appointing authorities in advance, and then we made, you know, a public release in January, at the end of January. We could do something like that, or we could hold off and do everything in September, right? I just think that it's really the public-facing launch that should be in September, but we could do a soft launch, just distributing it to the appointing authorities now, or, you know, whenever, and just make a public event later on.
I like that idea. What do other folks think?
No, that sounds fine. That sounds good.
I think it's a good approach.
Yeah, I agree. Nobody's checking in August.
So would the commissioners be okay if we did something similar to what we did in January? We drafted on behalf of the commission a short letter by which we transmitted copies of the report to the 5 appointing authorities. And that then discharges our legal obligation to have that distribution. And then we follow that up with a wider distribution in conjunction with a media plan in the September timeframe.
Yeah, that sounds good. And I think that the initial distribution could be done by email. I'm not sure. I think in January we did hard copies too, right, Bill?
Yeah, we did both hard copy and email. Yeah.
Yeah. So under the circumstances, I think we'd be okay just with email, but we could do hard copy too, but email would be fine probably.
Yeah, I'd vote for email because I don't want to have access to the corporate printers.
Yeah.
And I'd be printing up, you know, all these copies on my home printer.
Well, I can do the printing, but that means, you know, sending people into offices and doing things like which we may not need to do at this point. Take on
Yeah,
this.
I agree. I think electronic is the way to go. Hey, can I get back to House Bill 4908? Carmen, this could be a question over to you. Should one of us, should maybe several of us, reach out to the committee chairs where the bill currently sits? What type of action should we take?
You know, definitely the committee chairs, but I also think maybe the majority leaders in both the House and the Senate.
Should we ask for a meeting? Should we send a letter? What do you think?
Yeah, wouldn't hurt at all to ask for a meeting, absolutely. Or a couple of meetings, maybe one meeting with the House Majority Leader, one meeting with the Senate Majority Leader and the chair of that committee.
You know,
We could have, yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
it might not be a bad idea just to send them a copy of this second report with a note that basically says,
Right.
this is a key component of our report and something we believe is essential for this to move forward. We understand that the bill is now in committee, and we, you know, advocate strongly for it moving forward, and hope we can enlist your help to do so, something like that.
I mean, if it's agreeable to the committee, I'd volunteer to put together the email, send the report, ask for the meetings, and comment, I'd ask you for the names of the House and Senate committee
Sure.
chairs, and House and Senate majority leaders.
Yep, absolutely.
Would the commission be okay with me moving forward as recommended?
Yeah.
Yep,
Absolutely.
I'm good.
Okay. As it relates to House Bill 3208, we're on record that we endorse enactment. What else can we do to advocate timely attention in moving that bill forward? This is the House Bill 3208, Senate 2163. This is the legislation filed by Common for Massachusetts to apply to the U.S. Congress for a constitutional amendment. What can we do?
So Bill, I can reach out to, we've already reached out to the speaker and haven't heard back. You know, we've asked for a meeting, we haven't heard back. I can reach out to other people in his leadership team and talk with each of them individually about it, to try to get some traction. I don't know how available they'll be right now, but I will certainly make the effort, and I'm sure I can get a hold of some of them.
And is there anything in addition, Common, that the rest of us might do to be helpful?
I think probably if we reach out to the Senate President's office, to the Senate President, and let her know that you know, where we are, and you know, would like to move forward with this successor commission, and you know, keep it on her radar. Perhaps she might bring it up as a subject at the meetings that she has with the speaker and the governor. I don't know if they're going to continue to have these meetings during the month of August, or whether they're going to take a break. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, so let me make another suggestion. You know, there's no reason that I can think of that we can't send a copy of our second report, maybe even a link to the first one, and call attention to the two legislative items, the two bills that are in motion at the State House, to all members, right, of the House and Senate, and make them aware of the fact that these exist, that that the Commission has endorsed them and is strongly behind them, and again, solicit their help in advancing these in whatever way they might be willing to help. So it could be just a way of getting more, more advocates here, and building our coalition and making everybody aware of the work that we've done at the same time. No need to just stick with the leaders.
Sure. In fact, if you and Bill, if you put together a letter, and the two of you signed it as the co-chairs, maybe all of us could assent to, signing all our names to the letter on our commission letterhead. And I could email that to every member of the House and Senate and all their staff members. So that would get, that everybody would receive that.
Yeah.
And then we'll also send it to State House News, and they'll report it.
Yeah.
Love it. That's good. I love it.
I mean, even though the law requires us to only inform the 5 appointing authorities, the law doesn't prevent us from reaching out to others. And I think just making people aware of the work that we've done is a good thing for our commission all around. I mean, some legislators might know, but I would guess most aren't really aware of the work we've been doing.
I definitely agree
Right,
with that.
especially, well, yes, I agree. Yeah. I mean, people have been really preoccupied with the COVID-19 challenges and addressing that in the legislature and pushing other things aside. We're really happy to actually get some really good climate, energy legislation through, and the police reform bill through, and some other important bills. But you're absolutely right.
If we were to share it with others, would it be good for us to ask them to sign on to it as well? Do you think that would make it stronger, Carmen?
Oh, to sign on to the bill?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if the time for people to sign on is passed. If it hasn't passed, it might only have another, day or two. So I think the time for signing on, I don't see getting people signing on right now. With House bills, you have to sign on either while they're still in the docket phase, or, you only have like 10 days to sign on. So that may have gone by now.
I think we would probably get a lot more goodwill if we didn't have a specific ask, except please support our efforts type of thing, right? A generic appeal to help us move our work forward rather than.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, I'll send out, the action items here. I'm keeping notes. What about this thought of getting our 5 appointing authorities to reach out to other states? What do people think about that?
I think it's really important. I mean, if we want to, we need other states, we need other people across the country. We did a lot of good work. We should share that work, and we should ask, the law passed by the voters and this commission report explicitly declares the policy of Massachusetts is behind this, and our elected officials are expected to do what they can do to help get it done. And that means, at the bare minimum, let their counterparts in other states know about this and start considering the information. Seems to me, sort of step one, not even a big ask. And so I know they're all busy and everything, but I'm sure they all have email lists of their counterparts, and we could use the associations, but better yet, we could ask them to take on that burden, to use the associations to go to each one of their counterparts. We proposed, the Senate president and the Senate minority leader do a joint one. I think that would be very effective because they're different parties in all of these different offices around the country. But, for Governor Baker to send it to the 50 governors, and I think that's really important and a pretty easy thing for them to do, especially if it's an email and they have regular lines of communications for that sort of thing. I do think we should have I would even suggest we draft a proposed distribution letter email for them, and that the contact point come back to some group, maybe the co-chairs or others. I'd be happy to participate in that kind of coordinating function, so that people have questions about what we've done, they have questions about the amendment, or they say, we want to help, what can we do, that we give them something clear. And, with my American Promise hat on and our national network and members in every state, we would certainly coordinate so that people in their states know that their elected officials got this report and they should take it seriously. So I think it's one of the highest leverage things on this list, actually, in terms of impact to bring this forward more.
So we've already talked about corresponding to the 5 appointing authorities, by which we transmit a copy of the second report. in that correspondence, we could add this additional topic. I hope it doesn't get lost. Or we could have a second outreach to the 5 appointing authorities just on this particular topic.
I think we may have one shot at this. We should distribute the report and say, here's what we ask of you. Pursuant to recommendation number X, we have prepared a draft distribution letter for your consideration for you to share this with your counterparts in every state.
That's where my head was at, Jeff, too. I just wanted to throw it out there, and make it easy for them to, it's give it to them on a silver platter.
Yeah, exactly.
And hopefully at least 3 of the 5 will act on it.
Yeah, I'd be happy to work with you on that piece, Bill, if that's helpful, or any other commissioners want to.
I think that's a really good idea to just give it to them so they read it, they like it. At most, maybe they edit it a little and they said, but make it really easy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've got a lot of notes, which I will summarize and send out to folks after this call about the various items and the actions that we plan to take, and give the people, look for confirmation, look for an email from me with these notes, and I'll ask you to confirm that the notes are correct, and then we can all act accordingly. In the interest of time now, I'd like to suggest that we move to public commentary, and we open the mics like we have done in previous meetings, and allow members of the public to, if they choose to offer comments or commentary, to register their interest with Greg in the chat box, and then we'll recognize folks and we'll open up the audio and the video privileges on a case-by-case basis. Are we ready to move to that portion of the agenda?
Sure.
Okay. So here, no objection. Greg, do we have members of the public that want to weigh in at this time?
Certainly, there were a couple of questions in the chat box, but there are 2 people who've raised their hand to speak. So the first one's Michael Bleiweiss.
Okay, Michael, we recognize Michael.
Okay. First, at this point, public commentary is essentially futile. I want to say that I really resent your ramming through a final vote on the report before soliciting public input. It makes public input meaningless. Several of us had some points we wanted to raise on changes you made to the report between the last version and this one, including watering down your approach to the possibility of a 1 amendment, option in doing your outreach. But it's meaningless now because you already voted on the report. So, it shows kind of an ongoing, to me, it shows an ongoing contempt for public influence or public input that's kind of characterized the entire process for this commission in the past 1.5 years. So I don't like to be confrontational, but that's my comment at this point.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Do members of the commission have questions or follow-up from Michael?
Oh, yes, and it could be a violation of the open meetings law.
Thank you, Michael. Other commissioners have questions or comments they want to make to Michael?
Yeah, I do actually. And I'm sorry, I tend to, I don't mind confrontation. I'm used to it. That's fine. What I mind and have to just voice my objection to is the notion that somehow this commission has been characterized by lack of interest in public comment. I've been involved in public affairs for 30 years. I've never seen such an effort to engage so many public comments and public members with 20 hearings, public drives, chat rooms, adapting in a coronavirus crisis time to virtual meetings, patience and listening to comments. So, Michael, I'm sorry. I appreciate your perspective. I appreciate your involvement, but I can't let that stand. This body of people have done so much. These chairs have done so much to engage the public. So you may not like how it comes out in the end. That's also the nature of public affairs. But to say that you and others were not heard is just an injustice to the people who've done a lot of work and the people who were heard and made this process and this report a whole lot better. So I'm not going to speak to the substance because, you know, in a democracy, you win some and you lose some in terms of what you might want individually. And that's not what's at issue here. But to question the process like that's just not fair.
Other commissioners have any more comment on this to Michael? Okay, I'll just say, Michael, as the chair, I've tried to be as fair and even-handed as possible. And not everybody has unanimous opinion on every single word, but we do have a report. It's been voted on. It's gone through due diligence. It's gone through several iterations. It's in the public domain. I'm comfortable that we have done justice to the spirit and the intent of the public interest, public meetings law. Greg, who's next?
Are there 4 more people? Ulysses Leitner is next.
Okay, Ulysses, we recognize Ulysses.
Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, Ulysses Latiner, Somerville. I was going to make basically the same point that Michael was making, but instead of phrasing it as a conflict, I'm going to make a request, which I realize is a little non-atypical, but I think it's totally within the realm of, you know, what the commission could do. And specifically, there were 2 sentences that were included in the draft that you showed the public at the last hearing, one of which said that your approach does not preclude alternative recommendations for language on 1 or more amendments. That was on page 11, I believe. And then one said that that the state should consider merging 2 amendments into a single amendment if the ongoing process indicates that is the approach with the strongest report. And I believe that was on page 16 of your current document. No objections were raised by any members of the public or any commissioners at the last hearing, so I think it's reasonable for the public to expect those passages to appear in the final report. They're brief, they don't bloat the text of your report at all, but they indicate the specific importance to the public, who, as you noted, is overwhelmingly in favor of a single amendment, the importance of maintaining that flexibility, despite the fact that the commission is recommending 2 amendments. And so since there were no objections to those sentences raised in the previous hearing, I don't see why there should be any objection to them being restored now. So through the chair, I would like to ask Jeff, who I understand is the one managing this document, to make a motion to reopen the report and very quickly restore those 2 removed passages. I can show you exactly where they were, and you had no objections to them last time. Just put them back and then vote to approve the report. And then that would basically address the problem that Michael and I are raising here.
Thank you, Ulysses. Do the commissioners have questions, comments for Ulysses? Okay, do the commissioners want to reopen the report as Ulysses has suggested? Are any of the commissioners interested in reopening the report on the 2 issues that Ulysses mentioned?
Can I just hear someone say no? If that's everyone's opinion, is that no, you don't want to? I just want that to be on the public record that you are not interested in reopening it.
I'm not hearing any interest in reopening the report. I appreciate the comment though, Ulysses. Who's next, Greg?
The next one is Paul Lowenstein.
Okay, we recognize Paul.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, Paul.
I'm Paul Lowenstein from Sharon. Thank you for taking my comments. I appreciate the interest in the commission in following through with this report and trying to make something happen by reaching out to the other 49 states as you've described. I hope in reaching out to the leadership of the Massachusetts legislature in regards to the successor commission, H 4908, that you also not fail to mention the importance of also passing H 3208 and S 2163 as an expression of Massachusetts leadership in promoting an amendment. It would be somewhat, the other states might take us more seriously if we pass the We the People Act, which you have endorsed. So I hope you won't fail to mention that to the leadership when you talk to them about the 4908, the successor commission. I would also just comment, something you might also want to bring up is the fact that Massachusetts passed a resolution in 2012, 8 long years ago, and joined 20 other states in politely asking Congress to propose the amendment we need to overturn these Supreme Court decisions and revive our moribund democracy. 5 other states have upped the ante by calling for an amendment proposing convention to put pressure on Congress to propose the amendment we need, which has been done historically on several occasions when Congress has not been responsive to the obvious will of the people. And I just hope that in talking to the leaders of the Massachusetts legislature that you will also underscore the importance of, to really demonstrate our commitment to a constitutional amendment to fix our broken democracy, that we pass H3 208 and S2163, which is the same bill, in the Massachusetts legislature as soon as possible. So that's basically my request.
Good points, Paul. Thank you. Other commissioners have questions or comments for Paul? Okay, Greg, who's next?
Opponent, thank you.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Con.
No, I just was thanking for Paul for all his work on this.
Yeah, I think we all want to throw as much as we can behind House Bill 3208 in Senate in House 4908. Greg, who's next?
John De Herrera.
Okay, we recognize John.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes, John.
Thanks for giving me a minute here. I was a co-founder of a group called Friends of the Article 5 Convention, and we were mentioned in the Congressional Research Service paper about the Article 5 Convention. And basically the congressional records show that the states have legally satisfied the convention clause, and that the 116th Congress is currently the latest Congress that's simply ignoring the record and its obligation to issue the call for a convention. So I'm eagerly looking forward to seeing the final report, and I'm hoping that this successor commission comes together, because based on 20 years of experience, we've had state legislatures, various politicians at various levels, non-politicians, all saying that we need this amendment, we need that amendment, blah, blah, blah. But the fact of the matter is we have to get to the table to actually be able to formally discuss them. And so that's where I see is the end game is everyone's got a pet amendment. In this case, the commission's pet amendment is to strip corporations of human rights, which I'm all in favor of. But the fact of the matter is there's a lot of different amendments, and the current Congress is the latest to deny our right to formally discuss our situation. And if the successor commission comes together and says, okay, well, we've tried A, B, and C to advance this amendment down the field, but it's not going as planned or as hoped, then maybe an action to get the legislature of Massachusetts to formally sue the Congress and say, you guys got to call a convention. It's part of the Constitution. It's why the convention clause is there. So in closing, I'll just say that there are a number of amendments out there that Americans across the country would like to see formally proposed. And that should be the goal, not a specific amendment, but just to get us to the table so we can actually begin the formal discussion about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. The commissioners have questions or comments for John? Okay, Greg, how many more?
Right now, just one more hand, David Rosenberg.
Okay, we recognize David. David, you're on.
You're muted, David.
Okay, I hope I've unmuted.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Great. So I'm David Rosenberg from Norfolk, Massachusetts. Once again, I'd like to thank the commission for its work. After the commission discussed the second report, the secretary asked whether you would be interested in hearing public comment at that time, and the chair ruled to defer that to a later section of the meeting. If the public comment were to be about anything other than the second report, I think that decision was quite appropriate, that it should be deferred. But if there was public comment about the contents of the second report, then it seems to me that public comment should have been heard before the commission voted on acceptance of the public report. Since that didn't happen, perhaps because the chair was unaware that the public comment would be on the contents of the second report, I'd like to strongly urge the commission to hear public comment on the contents of the report and then consider that before revoting on the second report. Thank
Yes,
you.
David, I think you're asking is whether the commission wants to reopen the report for additional changes, similar to what Ulysses suggested a few minutes ago. Do I understand you correctly?
Yes, except that I was explaining the rationale that.
So let me ask the commissioners again. Do any of the commissioners want to reopen the report for potentially additional changes?
Well, thank you for your consideration.
Okay, thanks, David. You know, we do have to move forward. Is there anybody else, Greg?
No, nobody else has their hand raised.
Okay.
Wait a second, Jan Jones at the last second slipped in there, so.
Okay, we recognize Jan.
Okay. Hi, I've come to many of these meetings and haven't said very much, but I've written to you. My comment is to echo those from several of my colleagues who would favor a single amendment rather than two. I know that the Equal Rights Amendment was passed 100 years ago. There was a move, I'm sorry, the women's right to vote, I believe it was the 19th Amendment, was passed 100 years ago. At the same time, it had been proposed to add to that equal rights for women, but it was proposed, but it ended up being proposed as a Second Amendment. Guess what? 100 years have gone by, still hasn't happened. Our concern is that this could happen, a similar lack of energy or lack of will could happen with the granting of corporate rights and the notion of who has constitutional rights. That because of the hurdle for passing one amendment, we may only get one bite out of the apple. Second comment I have, and I'll try to be brief, is regarding the term reasonably, and I appreciate that you spent a lot of time clarifying this. My concern is that this could be used, the use of the word reasonably could also have unintended consequences, and that any decision made to have that word included or excluded could potentially have unintended consequences. So you should not consider only one case that you happen to not like that might have unintended consequences without considering that the case you like may also have consequences. My concern is that reasonably kind of puts the courts in the driver's seat to decide what is reasonable and what is not. Whereas if you remove that word, then by law, laws regarding the campaign finance will be decided by the public through their representatives, what's reasonable and what's not. And that's perhaps easier to change than trying to go through the courts. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jan. Do commissioners have any questions or comments for Jan?
I just make the observation that I'm very glad that the amendment was successful in 1920. And perhaps if they had not chosen strategically to remove the equal rights from it, it would have been years later when women when they succeeded and women got the vote. I was shocked in college, you know, I was in college in 1973 when women finally got the vote, right to vote in Switzerland. And I couldn't imagine a Western European country, women didn't have the right to vote until, it was either 70, I think it was 1973. Crazy. So I think they made a good decision in 1920 to get the right to vote, and rather than have it be delayed. And we need to, similarly, I think we need to move ahead and be able to regulate campaign finance. And that's why I think that is why we have the 2-amendment approach instead of the 1-amendment approach, because we really need to get a handle on campaign finance. Thank you.
Thank you. And we can continue to disagree, but we'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
I'd also comment, Jen, and continuing to disagree is the essence of democracy, and that's what we all want. And you put those two arguments very well, and I think we're all aware there are pros and cons to all of these arguments, with good arguments on both sides. And that's why we endeavor to offer more explanation for the judgment we made and where we came out on both of those issues. So there's further discussion, as you pointed out, in the final report, both on the 2-amendment strategy and on the reasonableness. But we wouldn't have taken the time to do that if we were not respectful and mindful that we could be wrong. And there's arguments that we heard comments on, but that I think is the unanimous judgment of the commission. And of course, people will take or leave our recommendations, but we benefited from having those arguments on both sides, including how you just put it. And you know, I was also thinking, I didn't realize the Swiss did not get the right to vote for women till the 70s, but it's also, I was thinking along the similar lines that the 19th Amendment got ratified by one single vote in Tennessee, and that vote could have gone the other way very easily. One single vote got the amendment ratified, and after that, they were out of luck and out of time. So you never know in these things, but your comments were very thoughtful, and we wrestled with all of this stuff for sure.
Yeah, this is Costas. I would echo those sentiments, Jeff, and also thank Jan. These are things the commission grappled with repeatedly, especially in drafting the second report. And I would also just underscore something else that we've discussed multiple times, which is that these are the recommendations and the judgments of this commission on these issues, but we don't know what form they will ultimately take as they move forward in the process. And it's possible that in subsequent iterations, other bodies and entities who take this up to move it forward may decide for whatever reasons to adopt a different course, including the potential for merging these into a single amendment. We've offered our reasons why we did not believe that should be the way forward, but that is entirely possible as this process unfolds in what's likely to be a fairly lengthy period.
Okay, thank you, Jan. Other commissioners have questions or comments for Jan? Okay, Greg, I think you said that was it?
Well, 2 more people have raised their hand, and also there have been some comments in the chat room. Paul Lowenstein wants to speak again, and then Jack Dean.
Okay, we can do that, but don't ask us, don't ask us to change the report, because we've already talked about that several times, and the commission has come to a conclusion. You may or may not agree with the conclusion that we've come to, and that's your prerogative, but it's also the prerogative of the commission to come to a conclusion and to document it in a report, and we have done that. So I don't want to spend time rehashing, the same topic again and again, but we will recognize who's next, Greg.
There are 2 people. One is Paul Lowenstein.
Okay, we recognize Paul.
Thank you. I will make this very brief, and I'm not going to ask the commission to do anything other than they've already done. I just want to observe that we are lately hearing calls for the discontinuation of the U.S. Post Office as a way of voter suppression. And we may need, you've recommended 2 constitutional amendments. We may need a 3rd one, and that is the right to vote. So that's it. I just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. You know, I mean, I'll just offer feedback on that and ask other commissioners if they want to do likewise. One of the reasons that I have been advocating that we get on the record with our second and final report and get into a agreed upon strategy to advance the amendment is my sense that the conditions will be ripe for change of the nature that we are all interested in after we go through this next electoral cycle. You know, my hypothesis is that the public is going to be so disconcerted with what is be forthcoming in the next 3 months that the conditions might be uniquely favorable and receptive to the interests that we're trying to pursue. Do other commissioners have any comments or questions for Paul? Okay, who's next, Greg?
Jack Dean.
We recognize Jack.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the commission for endorsing the We the People Act, and this evening saying that you're planning to push it along with the 4908 continuing commission legislation or bill. And also thank you all for the efforts you've done over the past year and a half or thereabouts. And I'm pretty new to this process, and I've been quite impressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. We appreciate that. And commissioners have any questions or comments for Jack? Okay, is there anybody else, Greg?
No, that's it.
Okay, so the next and the final agenda item is a motion to adjourn. And so we have a motion and a second and a discussion. I think the discussion might be an opportunity for us to exchange any parting thoughts. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. I'll start off in discussion just to say it's been an honor to serve with you all and a privilege to work on this important matter. I know that we will continue to work in some less formalized sense as we go forward, and indeed perhaps reformalize ourselves if and when there is a successor commission. But I'm committed to advancing this issue. Like I said, it's been a privilege to work with you, and I really appreciate all the contributions of the public and the testimony in the whole process. It's been remarkable. Other discussion?
Bill,
I just wanted to thank everyone. It's been terrific getting to know each of you, and I hope we're able to move this forward. I've really enjoyed the work of the commission, and you know, earlier tonight I was just reflecting on all the probably a couple of dozen different commissions or committees I've served on in the last 30 years, and you know, this really has been an outstanding commission insofar as we've taken so much public input, and the way we've done it, really, there's not a single committee or commission I've been on in the last 30 years that's done it as much as we have, and I think that's a really good thing. I think it's a really good thing, and I look forward to continuing to work with you in the future on this and/or other matters, and I'm hoping that we will be successful and see this amendment accomplished. Thank you all.
I really want to thank you, Bill and Costas, for being wonderful chairs. To you know, you both were very involved, committed, and you know, so I really appreciate you and Jeff a lot for you know, the roles that you've taken on. And you know, I also want to thank the public. I really feel like same thing as you know, Carmen, when you talk about reflecting on different committees, different works that you've been doing. I too have been reflecting as well, and I feel like this is one of the committees where I feel like you know, the public has been so involved, and we have been so open as well, and I really appreciate that. And I want to thank Greg as well for, you know, all of his help and being responsive to all of our emails and things like that. So I really appreciate our commission, the commissioners, but at the same time, the public for their honesty and feedback as well.
Bopa, this is Costas. Thank you very much. I wanted to, you took the words out of my mouth. I was just about to thank Bill for all of his efforts to keep us, keep the train running on schedule here, but also the other commissioners whose thoughtfulness and professionalism has impressed me over the course of this whole process. We really have all been very committed to doing this in a sensible manner, and the input from the public has been extraordinary. Just that dedication and that devotion in the testimony, expert and public testimony, I think has really helped shape our thinking about these matters, but also pointed the way forward for the next steps that we need to take to actually make this a reality. So I would just thank everybody, and also say that I continue to look forward to working with all of you in whatever capacity we can to advance the goals that we've set forth in our reports, and to see this become a reality for the nation.
Well, I will second everything that's been said without saying it again, and thank Bill and Costas and the public and all of the commissioners. You know, it's really a tribute to the vision that Americans can actually wrestle with really complex, big constitutional issues and never, never, never give up on this crazy idea that we're going to be a democracy governing ourselves, no matter how hard it gets. So I think Costas just reminded us, we're not really saying goodbye, because the work is, we got a lot of work to do. Both with this commission and across the country. So I, for one, am inspired by what this process has been since before the ballot initiative, when so many Massachusetts people worked so hard to put this on the ballot, create this commission. And you think of the challenges of that, genuinely grassroots effort, very little money, created a commission with no money, no budget, and yet we just kept going. And that's what, and the public, the people who participated in this, not just commissioners, just keep going. So it gives me great faith and not just hope, but knowledge, as Bill noted, that we're facing a reckoning in the country, and we're facing a huge opportunity to really do big things like this that wouldn't have been conceivable 5 years ago. So it's been a pleasure.
I agree with everybody's comments. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor, and appreciate everybody's time.
Scott, any closing thoughts? You're on mute.
I just typed a chat to thank everybody. I thank Greg for keeping us going during the Zoom era. Could never have been anticipated when we all came together. Bill, I thank you, and Costas, Jeff, Carmen, for Cheryl, for for doing a lot of the heavy lifting as we went forward, and most importantly, I just want to thank all these members of the public who are so committed to this issue, who I learned so much from, and I really appreciate that. And I hope that everybody continues to have the will and the fortitude, to stay committed and dedicated to these issues, because I really think that the fight is in front of us. And so it will be very interesting to be a part of it, hopefully going forward. So thanks to everybody.
Dominick, you want to weigh in?
Thanks, Bill. Yeah, I just want to echo those statements. My schedule didn't permit me to be able to participate in many of the meetings for the first report, just a few. But it's been a real pleasure to work with all of you, and I'm grateful to the co-chairs and certainly to the very many members of the public who offered their insights and comments throughout this process. I think it made it a better product in the end. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to have served with all of you.
Thanks, Dominick. So we have a motion to adjourn. It's been seconded. Any further discussion on the motion to adjourn? Okay, time for a vote. Rather than vote individually, does anybody object? Hearing no objection, we are successfully concluded. The meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Be safe. And congratulations, Grandfather Gentili.
Congratulations, Rep.
Thanks all. Good work.
Thanks all.
Bye,
Talk
everyone.
soon. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thanks, Greg.
Bye.